3,000 years of human cruelty, laid out in one terrifying timeline. What you're about to see will fundamentally change how you understand human evolution. We didn't just develop art, science, and culture. We systematically perfected the art of breaking other humans. Welcome back to our virtual museum of comparative torture studies. Behind me stretches the most comprehensive timeline of torture evolution ever assembled, from crude stone implements to invisible psychological warfare that leaves no marks but destroys minds completely. Here's what will shock you most. Torture didn't evolve randomly. It followed the exact same patterns as technology and science. Each era developed methods that perfectly matched their civilization's capabilities and deepest fears. By the end of this tour, you'll understand why modern psychological torture is actually more sophisticated than anything our ancestors ever imagined. Step into history's darkest corridor with me. Our journey begins in ancient Mesopotamia, 1,000 years before Christ. Notice these primitive but effective stone and bronze implements. Early civilizations understood anatomy, but not psychology, so they relied on pure physical horror. The Assyrians perfected flaying and impalement. But here's the key. Their torture was designed for public display. This was psychological warfare against entire populations. They carved their methods into stone tablets, proving torture was already systematic, not random violence. Ancient Egypt added religious justification. They believed physical suffering could purge spiritual corruption. This introduced the dangerous concept of moral torture, violence with divine purpose. Then came the Greeks and Romans with their greatest innovation, legal torture. Romans created the first torture manuals, standardizing techniques across their entire empire. The pattern emerges: physical devices plus legal justification plus systematic documentation equals state-controlled psychological warfare. Medieval Europe transformed torture from crude violence into mechanical art. Look at these devices: the Iron Maiden, breaking wheel, Judas cradle. These weren't just tools, they were engineering marvels designed for specific types of prolonged suffering. But the real evolution was psychological. Medieval torture became religious ritual. The Spanish Inquisition perfected graduated torture, carefully controlled escalation designed to save souls through suffering while extracting confessions without killing. They developed detailed procedural manuals requiring written authorization for each session. Torture became bureaucratic. They also created the auto da fe, public torture spectacles that were part entertainment, part religious ceremony. Medieval contribution: mechanical sophistication, combined with religious justification, legal procedures, and mass entertainment. They institutionalized cruelty as spiritual practice. The Renaissance brought scientific thinking to human suffering. Notice these more refined instruments. Torture became a subject of scholarly study and technical innovation. Renaissance torturers began studying anatomy to maximize pain without death. They documented effectiveness rates and developed scientific torture, systematic experimentation to improve techniques like laboratory research. But here's the paradox. The Enlightenment both perfected and condemned torture. While philosophers like Cesare Beccaria argued torture was morally wrong and practically ineffective, military leaders secretly developed more sophisticated psychological methods. This period created refined torture, methods designed to leave no permanent marks while maximizing psychological destruction. French and Italian innovators focused on shame and humiliation rather than physical pain. Scientific approach plus anatomical knowledge plus psychological focus plus philosophical opposition equals the birth of invisible torture. The Industrial Revolution revolutionized torture through technology and scale. Electric shock, mechanized devices, and mass production made torture more effective and widespread than ever before. World War I introduced systematic prisoner interrogation. Both sides developed scientific interrogation, combining physical discomfort with psychological pressure. Torture became industrialized for military intelligence. The 1930s and 40s saw torture reach unprecedented scales. Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia created entire bureaucracies dedicated to systematic torture, processing thousands using standardized assembly line techniques. But 1948 brought the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, making torture illegal under international law for the first time in human history. Then came the ultimate evolution, pure psychological torture. The CIA's KUBARK manual codified techniques like sensory deprivation, sleep disruption, sexual humiliation, and identity destruction. These methods leave no physical evidence but create permanent psychological damage. 3,000 years of evolution reveal the ultimate irony. As human rights consciousness increased, torture techniques became more sophisticated. Modern psychological torture is more effective than ancient physical methods, yet completely invisible. We've traced humanity's darkest innovation from stone implements to psychological warfare. Understanding this timeline helps us recognize torture in its modern forms. Which period shocked you most? Share below and subscribe for more virtual museum revelations that expose uncomfortable historical truths.